Hi, welcome to Father of Games. Today, we're looking at the Spirecrest Expansion for Everdell. Now this expansion adds a bunch of new things to the game. It adds a new board, map tiles, large critters, and discovery cards. I should mention this is not a standalone expansion. The base game is required to use this. If you need to learn how to play that, I've linked that in the description below. But otherwise, let's see what new changes this expansion brings. Inside the box, you'll find a mountain game board extension, 33 discovery cards made up of foothills, peaks, and ridge cards, 12 small weather cards, 3 for each season, 5 big critter meeples with saddle attachments, 15 rabbit traveler meeples, 30 cardboard map tiles, 12 3-point tokens, and fox meeples. The collector's edition also adds 9 more discovery cards, 3 big critters, and meeples for the owls, lizards, and the moles. To set up, start by setting up the game exactly like you would without the expansion. When that's done, add the mountain board extension and place all large critter meeples near the board. Next, find the small weather cards and randomly choose one from each season and place them on the highlighted spots on the board. The winter card is placed face up and the rest face down. The remaining cards are returned to the box. After that, organize the discovery cards by their 3 types, shuffle them, and place them face down on the highlighted spots on the board that match their backs. When that's done, grab the 30 map tiles and take out the 6 with the different backs. Each player is given one of these, and the remaining ones are returned to the box. Shuffle up the remaining 24 map tiles and deal out 1 plus the number of players in between each marker on the board. So for example, a 3-player game will be set up like this. All map tiles are dealt out face down, with the exception of the first group of tiles that are placed face up. After that, each player places a traveler meeple that matches their worker color on the first marker, and the game can begin as normal from there. Now the first gameplay change is the weather cards. These cards represent different adverse weather conditions that your workers will have to face as they're trying to build their city. Now it's hard to build a city. It's a lot harder as a small critter, I imagine. Imagine those same critters struggling to build their city while also dealing with torrential rain, lightning storms, and hail. Needless to say, these weather conditions are not for the faint of heart. Just like a regular game, all players start in winter, so the first weather card starts flipped up to show what adverse weather condition all players will be facing during this season. For example, this card is a blizzard, and it says whenever you gain a resource from a forest location, you gain 1 less. So any players currently in winter would gain 1 fewer resource than was shown on the card for each forest location. The first player to enter a new season flips over the next season's weather card and will be dealing with the new weather condition for that season. So because players can be in different seasons at different times, they can also be facing different weather conditions at different times as well. The next gameplay change is the Rabbit Traveler Meeple and the map tiles. The map tiles are grouped by destination marks on the board, and when a player prepares for a new season, they move the Rabbit Traveler Meeple to the next marker on the board and choose one of the map tiles in between the destination marker they left and the one they're going to, and they add that tile to their expedition. These tiles represent the locations your Rabbit Traveler can visit as they're making their way through the seasons. The unflipped map tiles are not revealed until a player enters a destination marker that hasn't yet been visited. When a player prepares for autumn, instead of placing the Rabbit Traveler on a new marker, since there are no more on the board, instead they'll place it at the start of their expedition. Now I'll go over how the expedition works in more detail when we get to look at how scoring works, but first I need to go over the last gameplay change, the discovery cards. These cards represent different discoveries that your Rabbit Traveler can make as it's making its way through its expedition. How this works is when a player takes the Prepare for Next Season action, they flip over the top 3 cards from the appropriate deck. When entering spring, they flip the cards from the foothills. When entering summer, they use the cards from the peaks. And when entering autumn, they'll use the cards from the ridge deck. But regardless of what season they're entering, the top 3 cards are placed left to right on the highlighted areas. And one of these 3 cards will be available for purchase. The card in the leftmost spot is always free. The one in the center costs either 1 card from a player's hand or 1 resource. And the card in the rightmost spot costs either 2 cards or 2 resources. 1 card and 1 resource could be paid instead. When purchased, the player adds this card to their play area and puts the 2 unpurchased cards at the bottom of the appropriate deck. Discovery cards will never affect a player's 15 card city limit. Discovery cards are broken up into 5 types. The first type is Trails and City cards. They are cards that challenge you to fulfill certain requirements to gain points at the end of the game. Next is the Ongoing Effects cards. As the name suggests, they are cards that grant an ongoing ability for the rest of the game. Location cards are next, and similar to red location cards from the base game, they are locations that you can send your workers to gain a benefit. And just like the base game, some locations can be visited by other players and some can't, so keep an eye out for the open signs on the cards. The next type is the when played cards. I guess this one's a little self-explanatory, but how these cards work is when they're played you get a one-time ability or effect, and then the card is discarded. And finally we have the big critter cards, the ones that everyone likes. If a big critter card is chosen, take the corresponding critter meeple, as shown on the card, throw a saddle on it, and slide your worker in the saddle. The large meeple is now considered one of your workers and can be placed on the board the same way a regular worker is. But each large meeple also has a special ability that can be used instead of being placed like a normal worker. For example, Corleander here says you may achieve any event for half the required cost. So if you played this critter on any basic or special event, it would only cost you half the required cost as it normally would with a regular worker. Add up your points from the city, event cards, and journey locations, just like you would with the base game, but on top of that, add the points from any discovery cards, as well as the points you scored from your expedition. At the bottom of each map tile there's a cost shown, and beside that is how many points you score if you pay the required cost. If paid, move your rabbit traveler to that location. All 3 map tiles in a player's expedition may be achieved, but all map tiles must be paid in full and in order. For example, if this was my expedition and I paid the 3 point tokens required to visit Twin Bridges, scoring 4 points, the card and berry costs on Yarrow's Patch would need to be paid before I could visit Lily Ponds. If I didn't have the required costs to visit Yarrow's Patch, then my expedition would stop there and I'd only score 4 points. So it's very important that players choose map tiles accordingly to what they think they can achieve. So that's how you play Spirecrest. Really quickly, I'm going to go over some positives and negatives, and then I'll give you my rating out of 10 at the end. So my first negative is the map tiles feel a little unbalanced. It is first come, first serve, so there's kind of, that makes sense why some are better than others, but some are quite a bit better than others. And it just, some people might get frustrated if they're always, taking too long to do their turns and then their actions, and then the map tiles are left where they're nowhere near as good as the other ones that other players took. It is first come, first serve, but it could be a potential frustrating thing for some people, especially the ones that require point tokens to get points. Like some require 2 point tokens to get 3 points. You end up with 1 point at the end of that. It just is way worse than some of the other ones that are 6 points for just 3 cards and 3 resources that people usually have left over anyways. So some are way better than others, and it could be frustrating for some people. My next negative is the weather cards. Some people really don't like them. I personally, I think they had a nice change to the game. I personally don't mind them too much. They are frustrating, but they're meant to be. Some people won't even play with them that I play with. They just refuse to use them altogether. And you can play without them, but it can be frustrating for people. If you want to use every component in this expansion, no matter what, that might be a deciding factor of whether or not to play it or not. It definitely can be frustrating with those. And my next negative is the increase in choices that this expansion brings can increase the length of the game significantly. If you find the people you were playing with before just take forever to make the decisions and the game is already at the limit of how long you want a game to take, then this expansion might not do it for you, because there's really an increase of choices in this one. There's the map tiles, you put your resources into those, or do you put your resources into the cards? And every season you choose a map tiles of which one do you take and when do you do your actions, so you don't end up with those 2 point map tiles that I was talking about earlier. The increase in choices with that, and the discovery cards, they're like which one, every season you have 3 to choose from, and then you have to adjust your strategy to that. And then also when to do different actions. Do you take the hit and do an action where you're going to lose, like not get the full benefit because of the weather condition, or do you wait and hope that you get one that isn't quite as bad next season? There's a variability in strategies, which is nice that there is a variety, but for certain people it might just take way too long if they have to analyze every possible outcome, and it can just be too long and too much for some people. So those are my negatives. And now for positives. First one is the theme and the increase in what they've expounded on in the theme. Like the artwork on the weather cards is just absolutely amazing. They've really improved on what was already an amazing theme in the base game, and just something about your workers struggling with torrential rain or like severe wind as they're trying to struggle to build their city. It's adorable, and they did an amazing job with the artwork and the overall theme with everything in it. My next positive is the discovery cards. They're absolutely amazing. They again, the artwork on those is fantastic, and Some are definitely worse than others, same as the map tiles, but they always add a nice change, and you can adjust your strategy according to what you get. And it is a really nice addition. I really like how they did that. I'm not crazy about how they made it random. Like, you could get the best tile, or the best card could be free depending on where it lined up on the board, like where it flipped up. I don't personally love that much, but the cards themselves are absolutely fantastic, and they really outdid themselves with that. My next positive is there's no cards added to the base deck. I really like that. That was one of my main complaints about Pearlberg. It's kind of a minor thing, but if you want to use the expansion and you have to add the cards to the deck every time, it takes a bit of time. And then if you have to search through the deck to take them out, if you don't want to use the expansion later on, it increases the setup time and the teardown time. It may not be a big deal for some people, but this expansion doesn't have that. All the cards are separate. They're on the map, or the whatever, the board at the bottom of the map. So they're all separated from the base game, and it's a nice touch. I'm glad they did that, as opposed to adding more cards to the base deck. Because if you wanted to use the expansions together, it'd be too much. You wouldn't even see the new cards often necessarily either. So I really like that. So if you're going to get just one expansion, this is definitely the one I would recommend. They're all good, but this one is just a little bit better than the other ones. At least the two that are out right now anyways. If you're going to get all three, I would say get this one last. It has the most complexity and is the longest game time out of any of the expansions. That players need to be very familiar with the game to use this one. If you're going to get this one first, I would say at least make sure you know the game really well at that point. But either way, they did a fantastic job with this expansion.
Father Games rating 9.5.
And that's how you play Spirecrest. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more videos.